You think I killed my own sister? Latifa stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame. Rain clung to her coat. Her voice cut through the room. Dante Russo did not stand. He did not soften his face. I think you know more than you say. The words landed hard. She let out a short laugh. Sharp, hurt. You buried one woman with silence, she said. You won't bury me with suspicion. The room locked tight around them. Files lay open on the table. Photos, dates, phone logs. A life reduced to pages. Dante's voice stayed low, controlled. You arrived 6 months after my wife died. You asked questions no one else asked. You watched my son like you were guarding him. Latifa stepped forward. I was protecting a child, she said. If that scares you, that's your problem. His jaw set. Everything connected to that night scares me. Her eyes did not flinch. Then look somewhere else. Silence followed, heavy, unmoving. This was not anger. This was betrayal meeting grief. And neither of them stepped back. The night Malika died still lived in his head. Tuesday, late. No forced entry. No sound. She was found in the garage. One gunshot. No cameras worked that day. Dante remembered the smell of oil. The engine still warm. Her phone still unlocked. The police labeled it complicated, delicate even. No one was charged. Files collected dust. He did not accept that. While others mourned with flowers and meals, Dante built timelines. He mapped her final steps, paid for full surveillance sweeps, pulled phone pings from 5 blocks out. Every night, he replayed her last voicemail. Every morning he woke before the sun and looked for what he missed. Then came Sammy's silence. His son stopped asking questions, stopped calling her name. He stared at photos too long. He watched people too closely. Dante hired therapists, changed routines. Nothing filled the gap until she came, 6 months later. Latifa. No frills. No noise. She sat across from him during the interview and didn't flinch when he said, "This house has rules." Her answer wasn't what he expected. "I understand dignity," she said. "Mine included." He gave her 30 days. No more. Nothing permanent. But something permanent had already started. She didn't try to impress him. That's what unnerved him first. Latifa asked no questions about salary, legacy, or expectations. Only one. "Where does your son eat breakfast?" Dante pointed to the kitchen. She nodded. Interview over. The first week, she barely spoke. Sammy followed her with quiet steps. She read to him without voices. She didn't fill space with noise. When he cried at night, she sat outside his room until he fell asleep. Dante told himself he was watching for mistakes. But the truth was simpler. He didn't know what to do with someone who didn't want anything from him. Malika noticed. She visited often, always watching Latifa longer than necessary. Once, in the hallway, she leaned close and whispered, "You're lucky. Not many get this close to power." Latifa stared back. "I'm here for a child." That answer spread, heavy, unapologetic. Then came the night the lights went out. A storm slammed the power lines. Sammy panicked. Latifa moved fast, held him, calmed him. Dante stood in the doorway and watched her, framed in candlelight. Not dramatic, not performative, just present. When the lights came back, he didn't leave. He told himself he was being cautious. But he stayed because it felt like the first breath after months underwater. "You think I'm after your money," Latifa said one evening, her hands still drying a glass. Dante hadn't spoken, but she read him anyway. "You think I saw an opening?" She added. "Some desperate woman hoping for a shortcut." He didn't answer. "I buried my mother before I learned how to dream," she said. "I don't chase what doubts me." She faced him then, closer than before, measured. "Still, you don't trust me. Say it." "I don't." There was no flinch in her response, only steel. "Good," she said. "Then keep your distance." But he didn't. Late nights blurred into longer silences. Her presence became routine, not convenient, grounding. One evening she found him with black coffee and reports spread across the kitchen island. "You look hollow," she said. "You shouldn't be here." She didn't step back. She stepped closer. "Your son needs you steady," she said. "So do I. If you expect trust." He reached for her wrist, but stopped before contact. "I won't cross that line. Neither will I," she said. "But don't pretend we don't see it." For a second, neither moved. The space between them held something neither could name, but both knew was real. It started with a financial report, a name that didn't belong, a wire transfer with no purpose, a phone number that had once been Malika's. The deeper Danta looked, the more he found. Shell companies, hidden meetings. One business partner mentioned a conversation the night before Malika died. That night, Danta stopped sleeping. The dots refused to scatter. They aligned. He asked Malika questions, soft ones. She answered with trembling hands and eyes too dry for real grief. "She wasn't who you thought," she said. "You should stop digging." He didn't. The next morning, Latifa found him in the kitchen. Same coffee. Same blank stare. She said nothing at first. Then, "You'll break if you keep chasing ghosts." "I thought I buried her right," he said. Latifa's voice stayed calm. "But you buried questions with her." Later that week, he called Malika in again. The confrontation wasn't loud, but it cracked her. She planned to leave, Malika whispered. She was going to expose everything. I panicked. Truth hit like winter air. Sudden. Cutting. Danta stood in the same room where he had first accused Latifa. "I was wrong," he said. She looked him in the eye. "I know," she replied. "What matters is what you do next." The door shut with more force than needed. Latifa turned. Her spine stayed straight, but her breath betrayed her. Danta didn't sit this time. He stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes fixed. "What did you do the night my wife died?" he asked. She blinked once. Slowly. "You already know that answer. I want to hear it from you." Her fingers curled around the chair back. "I was in Houston. You've seen the time-stamped receipts, the airport cameras, the boarding pass." He stepped closer. "And yet, 6 months later, you appear at my son's school. Apply for a job here. A job no one advertised." She didn't flinch. "I was referred." "By who?" She didn't answer. He slammed a folder onto the table. "Photos, bank statements, background checks. You came with no baggage. That's unnatural." "I came with boundaries," she said. "You mistook that for emptiness. You've been in this house every day. You knew where she kept her journals. You helped Sammy throw out her old shoes." Latifa's voice stayed low. "Because no one else would." His jaw tightened. "You've moved through this home like you own calm." "I protect peace," she said. "That includes from men who confuse suspicion with clarity." He pointed toward the hallway. "She trusted you." "I earned it," Latifa said. "You think everyone close to her had a motive. Maybe the problem is that she didn't trust you." That stopped him. Just for a second, he stepped back, sat down, eyes still locked on hers. "Do you know who did it?" he asked, quieter this time. She took a breath. Then, "I know you're asking the wrong questions." Tuesday evening, rain on the glass. The lights in the garage flickered once, then went out. Malika Russo parked her car. She didn't rush. Her heels tapped against the floor. She checked her phone. One unread message from Danta. It read, "Running late. Don't wait up." She didn't reply. At 7:53 p.m., the neighbors heard a single sound, not loud enough to startle. Quick, sharp. At 7:58 p.m., the smart lock reset itself. The power had surged again. When Danta got home at 9:04, the garage door didn't respond. He used the side entrance. There she was, still, eyes open, a red mark blooming on her blouse. No sign of struggle. No smashed glass. Her purse sat neatly on the passenger seat. The silence inside that garage stayed with him longer than any scream ever could. He called 911. His voice never cracked. The officer on the line kept asking if he was still there. He was. By 9:30, flashing lights painted the driveway. By 10:10, the questions started. Had she mentioned any threats? Was she seeing someone? Did she ever lock the door behind her? He answered everything, fully, repeatedly. They nodded, took notes, and said the case was complicated. No forced entry, no fingerprints, only a bullet. Close range, clean shot, and a phone left untouched in her bag. Her final voicemail was to Sammy. "Brush your teeth," she said, "and give your dad a hard time for letting you eat ice cream." Dante played it on loop for weeks. It stopped making him cry, but it never stopped making him feel cold. The city moved on, but he didn't. 2 detectives came. They left with a theory and a checklist. Neither came back with answers. Malika's murder moved from active to pending review in 6 weeks. The press ran the story for 3 days. Wife of billionaire CEO found dead in private garage. No suspects, no breakthroughs, only reminders. Dante hired 2 former federal agents within a month. Then, a retired intelligence analyst. Then a cybersecurity firm that specialized in deleted texts and triangulated cell data. Each reported back with timelines, but not clarity. There was no sign of break-in, no unusual activity on her accounts. Nothing strange on her call log, except one unreturned call from a restricted number the night before she died. Sammy had been asleep. Their security camera? Offline for routine maintenance. The system log showed it went dark for exactly 3 hours. Too clean, too deliberate. Still, nothing stuck. The men Dante paid were thorough, fast, discreet. But after 3 months, even they started saying things like, "Maybe you need to take space," or "Grief complicates memory." He let them go. He kept the file. Thick now, marked and remarked. He read it like scripture. He memorized her last known steps. He tracked the weather that night. He found himself sitting in the garage more than once, trying to hear something that wasn't there. People stopped asking how he was. Sammy stopped asking when she'd be back. Routine replaced hope. Survival replaced answers. Then, a name showed up in his inbox. Latifah Monroe, recommended by someone he hadn't spoken to in years. He didn't know why the name stayed with him that long. But something in it paused his grief. Not ended it, paused it. And for a man with no space left to breathe, even a pause felt suspicious. She walked in, right on time. No makeup, hair pulled back, posture upright, calm eyes. Dante barely glanced at her file. The agency had marked her highly recommended, no flagged incidents, no emotional outbursts, clean records from past families, but none of that mattered to him. He watched how she stood, hands by her side, not folded like most applicants. He noticed her shoes, scuffed but clean. He waited for her to fill the silence. She didn't. "This house has routines," he said finally. She nodded. "Children need structure. There's no nanny right now. He's guarded. So am I." His brow lifted slightly. "You understand this job requires more than scheduling and meals." "I understand what stability costs," she replied, "and what it saves." Dante sat back. Most candidates tried to prove they were warm, or clever, or loyal. Latifah didn't try anything. She just stood there. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "And that's irrelevant to your son." That response surprised him, enough to make him look up fully. "Why this job?" she answered without pause. "Because I don't want to fix broken men. But I will show a child what care looks like." That silenced him. "Where does your son eat breakfast?" she asked. He pointed to the kitchen. She nodded once. "Interview's over, then." She turned to leave. That's when he knew. This wasn't someone looking for a favor, or a check, or a way in. This was someone who understood weight, without needing to carry his. The first morning, Sammy didn't speak. He sat at the kitchen island, cereal soggy in his bowl, eyes fixed on nothing. Latifa didn't greet him with a forced smile. She simply poured her tea and sat across from him. No questions, no instructions, just presence. He looked up after 3 minutes, not surprised, just aware. "You're not like the others," he mumbled. She sipped. "That's because I'm not trying to be—" He blinked at her, then slowly pushed his bowl away. Later that day, while folding laundry in the hallway, she found one of his toy cars on the floor. She didn't pick it up. She waited. Sammy walked by, paused and looked at her. "You missed it," he said, pointing. Latifa looked down. "You're right." He smiled, not wide but real, and nudged the toy toward her foot. "I leave them places to see who notices," he said. She crouched to his level. "That's smart. Most don't. Most aren't listening." By the third night, he brought her a blanket, not because she asked, but because he saw her reading near the window without one. He didn't hug her. He didn't talk much, but he stayed closer. She never asked about his mother. She never mentioned sadness. She just stayed. One night, she sat by his door while he cried himself to sleep. She didn't knock. She didn't enter. She just waited, a quiet shape in the hallway light. The next morning, he put his book beside her tea before school. No words were exchanged. Trust wasn't announced. It showed up in silence. The camera feed wasn't for surveillance anymore. It had become habit. Danta watched from his office as Latifa moved through the house, quiet, measured, never in a rush. She didn't hover. She didn't correct Sammy loudly. She barely spoke, unless spoken to. At first, he convinced himself it was caution. A good hire. Someone who didn't overstep. But it wasn't that simple. She took her tea at the same time every morning. She folded Sammy's clothes with corners tucked in. She placed his toothbrush at the exact angle he left it, instead of fixing it. She adapted to his world, not forced him into hers. Danta noted the difference. He asked himself if she was rehearsed, polished, playing a part. He paid attention to the way she interacted with the staff, always neutral, never familiar, not cold. Just grounded. One afternoon, he stepped into the living room and found her sitting on the rug, watching Sammy build a train track. "You always this quiet?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Do you always talk to people like they're suspects?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" She looked at him then. "You study people, not to understand them, to control the outcome." Danta said nothing. She returned to watching the toy train move along its path. "I'm not here to impress you," she added. "But I'm not hiding either. I didn't say you were. You didn't have to." He stayed longer than he meant to, watching, listening. She wasn't charming. She wasn't guarded. She was steady. That unsettled him more than charm or secrets ever had. In his world, steadiness was rare, and always short-lived. Malika showed up unannounced. The first time, she brought banana bread. She held the pan like a peace offering, but scanned the foyer like she was checking for fingerprints. "She's new," she whispered to Danta while Latifa poured tea in the kitchen. "She's competent," he replied. Malika smiled, but it came late. "She seems familiar." "You sure she wasn't recommended for the wrong reason?" Danta didn't answer. Later that day, Malika lingered near the staircase, while Sammy explained a drawing to Latifa. "Does she know about—" Malika started. "She knows what she needs to," Danta cut in. "She walks like someone who's carried things," Malika added, sipping too slowly. "She walks like someone who doesn't need permission," he said. Malika's eyes narrowed slightly. "That can be dangerous in this house." The second visit came 2 days later. She brought Sammy a puzzle and asked Latifa how she liked working in a house this big. "It's just a house," Latifa replied. "Still," Malika said, "not everyone's comfortable with this level of access. I go where I'm needed, not where I'm curious." Malika tilted her head. "That sounds rehearsed." Latifa didn't blink. "That sounds like projection." Their standoff lasted only a few seconds, but Danta saw it. He also saw Malika watching Latifa when she thought no one was paying attention. Her gaze wasn't sisterly. It was calculating. By the time she left that evening, the banana bread still sat untouched on the counter. The shifts started small. Sammy clung a little closer to Latifah during storms. Danta noticed, but said nothing. He walked in one evening to find her sitting with Sammy on the kitchen floor, flashlight in hand, reading aloud during a short blackout. She didn't flinch when he opened the door. "I thought you left," he said. "I stay until he sleeps," she replied. "Especially when the lights are out. Most help calls it a day at 6. I don't clock out on children." She rose slowly, met his eyes, and left the room without another word. The next morning, Danta called the agency. "Is there anything in her file I missed?" he asked. The voice on the other end paused. "Nothing negative. Why?" "She's consistent," he said. "Too consistent." "That's not a complaint I hear often." That evening, Sammy had a nightmare, screamed once, then went silent. Danta rushed in, but Latifah was already there. She wasn't touching him, just speaking low. "It's safe. I'm still here." "You're not alone." Danta stood at the doorway, frozen. The same spot he'd once watched Malika cry, but this time he didn't move. Later, in the hallway, Latifah caught his eye. "You don't trust me," she said again. "No," she nodded, "just like before." "Then trust your son." He said nothing, because deep down, he already was. It didn't matter that Danta signed the checks. In some rooms, Latifah held more control than he did, not because she demanded it, because she didn't. She never touched his office, never commented on his decisions. But the atmosphere shifted when she walked in. The staff noticed. So did Sammy. One afternoon, a delivery crew mishandled an antique vase Malika once picked out. Danta shouted. Loud, immediate. Latifah walked past the mess, bent to help the delivery man repack what could be saved, and said nothing to Danta. Later, she found him in the study. "You don't raise your voice at people who didn't come here to hurt you," she said quietly. He looked up, half offended. "They were careless." "So were you," she said. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The next day, the housekeeper offered to stay late to help Latifah prep Sammy's lunch. Latifah smiled, shook her head. "I prefer to do it myself." Children can feel the hands that prepare their food. That line spread. The staff changed. Not their work, but their tone. Polite, quieter, less afraid. Latifah never corrected anyone. She adjusted the house by how she moved through it. At first, Danta saw it as unsettling. Then he realized she hadn't taken control. She restored something the house had forgotten. Balance. And in his own home, for the first time in months, he didn't feel the need to check every room twice. Danta worked late again. The dining table had become a second office. Spreadsheets, contracts, scans of private investigator notes lined across the wood surface. The overhead light buzzed faintly. At 11:42 p.m., footsteps. He didn't look up. Latifah entered with a tray. Chamomile tea for herself, black coffee for him. "You're consistent," he said. "I don't believe in making big decisions tired," she replied. He motioned to the stack of files. "You ever wonder how much of this matters?" She didn't sit. She sipped her tea, standing on the opposite side of the table. "It matters to you," she said. He glanced at her. "You think that's enough?" "No," she said. "But you already know that." The silence that followed wasn't cold. It filled the room like music that didn't demand attention. He noticed her wrists, small marks where she wore a watch during the day but removed it at night. Her nails, neat but never polished. Details. Quiet ones. One night, their hands brushed when she moved a folder out of his way. He froze. She didn't. "You should sleep," she said. "No one makes sound decisions past midnight." "I don't sleep well." "Then rest badly, but still rest." That night, when she left the room, he didn't go back to the files immediately. He sat back and just listened to a house that no longer felt haunted, but still wasn't healed. The rain started at 7:12 p.m. By 7:40, Thunder followed, then wind. Sammy clutched his tablet closer as the lights flickered. Latifah looked up from the sink but said nothing. Dunter stood by the window, checking the forecast on his phone. He hadn't realized how tense he'd become until the house went black. No power, no hum, no warmth. Sammy screamed from the hallway. "Dad?" Before Dunter could move, Latifah was already moving. She found Sammy in his room, back against the wall, breathing fast. "It's just the lights," she said, kneeling beside him. "You're safe." He didn't speak. "Breathe with me. In, out, count." Dunter hovered by the doorway but didn't step in. Latifah pulled a small flashlight from her bag, turned it on. Soft glow. She held it under her chin. "Want to hear something funny?" Sammy hesitated, then nodded. "I once thought thunder was two clouds fighting over who got to wear the moonlight." He laughed. "A real one." Dunter watched them. Something inside him shifted, less like a crack, more like space opening. When the lights returned 10 minutes later, no one rushed to stand. Latifah stood slowly. Sammy hugged her leg once, then walked past Dunter without speaking. She turned to leave too. Dunter's voice stopped her. "You did good." Latifah paused. "That's not why I stayed calm." "Why then?" She faced him. "Because someone has to be, when you're not." Later that night, after Sammy fell asleep, Dunter found Latifah in the kitchen. She was drying her hands. The storm had passed, but the air still carried tension. He leaned against the counter. "You knew exactly what to say. I wasn't trying to perform. I didn't say you were." She turned to face him. "But you thought it—" He said nothing. "I've worked in 6 homes," she continued. "Every man in charge thought I had a strategy." "You don't?" "I have standards," she replied. "That's not the same." He stepped forward. "You're guarded." "No," she said. "I'm disciplined. There's a difference. You talk like someone who's seen too much. I talk like someone who's not trying to earn your trust by smiling." The room quieted. He studied her for a long moment. "Why haven't you asked me anything personal? I don't confuse access with relationship. And if I offered both, I'd still ask myself who you think you're helping by offering them." That answer stopped him. She didn't fill the silence. She waited inside it. "Then, you don't scare me, Dunter. But your need for control does." He crossed his arms. "What does that mean?" "It means I won't play a role to calm your guilt." He exhaled. "You think I'm guilty?" "I think you're hurting," she said. "But hurting doesn't give you permission to treat everyone like a suspect." She turned to leave. "You challenge everything I assume," he said. Latifah paused in the doorway. "Good. Because most of your assumptions are wrong." The garage stayed locked. Dunter hadn't stepped inside since the night Malika died. But today he stood at the door, keys in hand, unable to turn the lock. He didn't know what he was hoping to feel. Closure? Anger? Clarity? He only felt cold. Back inside, he paced the hallway. Every framed photo of his wife seemed louder now. Her eyes too direct. Her smile too careful. In the kitchen, Sammy asked, "Why don't we talk about Mummy?" Dunter paused. "Because it hurts. Does it stop hurting if we stop saying her name?" That question stayed with him long after Sammy left the room. Later that night, he poured a drink he wouldn't finish and stood by the fireplace. Latifah walked past but stopped when she saw his expression. "You don't have to explain," she said. He didn't answer. She stayed quiet, not pressing, just waiting. Finally he said, "She had secrets. I ignored them." Latifah turned to face him fully. "We all protect things," she said. "Even the people who love us." He nodded. "I thought love meant believing the best, no matter what." "It doesn't," she said. "It means seeing the truth and choosing anyway." He looked at her, eyes tired. "I let the silence grow because I was scared of what it would say back." Latifah's voice was steady. "Then listen now. It's still speaking." The next morning, Latifah didn't bring tea to the study. She didn't greet Dunter in the hallway. She kept her space clean, her answers shorter. He noticed. By afternoon, he found her folding laundry in the guest room. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're quiet today," he said. "I needed space." "From me?" She looked up. "From your doubt." He stepped in. "I haven't accused you." "You don't have to," she replied. "Your silence does it for you." Dante didn't respond. Latifa placed the last towel in the drawer, then faced him fully. "I came into this house to help a child, not to navigate suspicion like furniture. You think I don't have reason to be cautious? I think you use caution as a shield," she said, "and I won't carry the weight of your fears." He stepped closer. "Are you saying you want to leave?" "I'm saying I won't stay if I'm only tolerated." Her tone was calm, not cold. "You trust no one," she added, "not even yourself." That hit harder than he let show. "I trust what I see." "Then open your eyes," she said, "because every time I've shown up, for your son, for this home, you've looked at me like a question instead of a person." He didn't argue. She brushed past him, but paused at the door. "I protect what I care about. That includes my peace." And with that, she walked away. Malika returned with flowers. "Thought I'd check on you," she said, placing the bouquet in a vase without asking. Dante didn't move from his seat. "Why now?" She smiled faintly. "You've been quiet lately. That usually means you're digging again." He glanced up. "Should that worry you?" She laughed too quickly. "No, just, I remember how obsessed you can get." She walked through the kitchen like it still belonged to her, picked up Sammy's drawing, examined it, then turned to Latifa, who had just entered. "He's getting better at staying inside the lines," she said. Latifa didn't answer. Malika moved closer. "You've done well, I'll admit. But children are impressionable. Don't give him the wrong ideas." "Which ideas are those?" Latifa asked. Malika's smile dropped an inch. "Attachment." Dante watched it unfold. He saw it now, how Malika's warmth always came with warning, how she asked questions meant to seem harmless. Later that night, he pulled a box from storage, an old laptop of Malika's, left behind after the funeral. She'd claimed it was outdated. He never pressed. Now he did. In the browser history, encrypted chats, unfamiliar contact names, one of them time-stamped the same night Malika died. He stared at the screen, his chest tightening. Outside, in the hallway, Latifa passed quietly, carrying Sammy's shoes, humming something soft. Dante didn't say a word, but the questions came anyway. Not about Latifa, about Malika. For the first time, Dante read his wife's old journals without skipping pages. They used to feel sacred. Now they felt like evidence. In between notes about Sammy and errands, he found something else. Names he didn't recognize. Meetings not logged in her calendar. Phrases that felt coded. One entry caught him off guard. "If I tell him everything, he'll leave. But if I don't, I'll never be free." He closed the journal and leaned back. Malika had warned him to stop digging. Latifa had said his assumptions clouded everything. He hadn't listened to either. Now both voices played in his head. He replayed moments. Malika's tension, her quick deflections, Latifa's steadiness, her refusal to over-explain. Dante pulled up the PI reports again. 2 flagged calls linked to Malika, not Latifa. He sat in silence. Then he stood and walked to the living room, where Latifa was helping Sammy sort through toys. She looked up, sensing something in his face. "Everything okay?" she asked. "I don't know," he admitted. She waited. "I spent weeks thinking you were hiding something," he said. "But I never stopped to ask why someone else might want me to." Latifa didn't react. Not with surprise, not with smugness, just quiet recognition. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I need your clarity." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll find it." She turned back to Sammy. Dante didn't move, because for the first time since Malika's death, he wasn't sure who he believed anymore, except the boy smiling on the floor, and the woman who never asked to be trusted, yet somehow earned it anyway. Dante sat across from Alec Hartman, a seasoned investigator who rarely spoke in anything but facts. Hartman slid a folder across the desk. We pulled every financial transfer from Malika's accounts in the 6 months before her death. Most are routine. Danta opened it. But 3 entries stood out. Hartman continued. Transfers to a consulting firm that doesn't exist. We trace the routing. It connects to a shell registered in Nevada. Owner masked under layers. Danta didn't blink. Anything else? 1 call, day before the incident. From Malika's burner phone to a number previously connected to a known fixer. Former security consultant. Moved off-grid 2 years ago. Danta flipped the page. Where's the connection to my wife? Buried, Hartman said. But the tone changed in Malika's texts a month before the murder. Less emotional, more calculated. Danta leaned back. Why haven't I seen these before? They were buried in backup files. Someone tried to delete them. They failed. Hartman paused. We're still digging. Danta nodded. Don't stop. After the meeting, Danta returned home and opened his private files. Names, timestamps, voice transcriptions, threads that once felt disconnected now circled the same handful of people. He circled one Malika, not as a victim, as a variable. The idea lodged itself like a splinter, and once there, it didn't let go. Danta sat with his legal advisor reviewing closed property records. Malika signed off on this? He asked, pointing to a transfer dated 2 weeks before his wife's death. Yes, the advisor confirmed. She acted as power of attorney, temporarily. She never mentioned it. Technically, she didn't have to. Your wife authorized it. The paperwork was clean. Too clean. He left the office with a knot in his chest. At home, he opened Malika's old drawer in the guest room she once used. Letters, receipts, a photo from a retreat in New Mexico, Malika, his wife, and a third man. Name, Brandon Kess. Not in any of their previous records. That night, Danta returned to his files. He searched Kess's name. Nothing direct. But in a 48-hour window, 2 weeks before the shooting, Malika received 2 international deposits. One from an account tied to a known asset manager linked to Kess. The pieces didn't scream guilt, but they whispered enough to wake him. Then, another thread, a phone call flagged in Latifah's initial background check, listed under missed call history. He checked the timestamp. It matched a call placed from Malika's phone. Danta sat still. She'd called Latifah once, just once, and never told him. Was it a warning? A threat? A setup? The question wasn't just who pulled the trigger anymore. It was who moved the pieces. And Malika's name kept appearing, quiet but constant. Danta invited Malika for dinner. No staff, no advance notice. Just the 2 of them at the long dining table she once claimed felt too formal. She arrived dressed carefully. Black coat, minimal jewelry. Her eyes scanned the room before settling on him. You look tired, she said. So do you, he replied. They ate in near silence. He let it stretch, watched how she held her fork, how she avoided looking at the chair where his wife used to sit. Finally he said, I went through her journals. Malika froze. Just for a moment. I didn't know you kept them, she said. I didn't know you handled property transfers, he replied. Her hand tightened around the glass. I was helping by moving assets without telling me. She asked me to, Malika said quickly. She trusted me. Danta nodded slowly. Did she trust you with the burner phone too? Her breath caught. What burner phone? He leaned back. The one you used the night before she died. Malika laughed, but the sound didn't land. You're reaching. Then explain the calls, the deposits, the meetings you never mentioned. She stood abruptly. You're letting your grief rot your judgment. Sit down, he said, calm but firm. She didn't. You always needed control, she snapped. You think money buys truth. No, he said. I think silence buys lies. Her face changed then. Not anger, fear. She was going to ruin everything, Malika whispered. She didn't know when to stop. Danta stood. Ruin what? Malika's lips parted, closed again. Too late. The crack had shown. She grabbed her coat. "You're making a mistake." Dante didn't follow her to the door. He already knew. Dante didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table as the sky shifted from dark to grey, black coffee untouched, the room still except for the faint hum of the fridge. Latifa entered without speaking. She noticed the stiffness in his shoulders, the documents scattered across the table, the coat still hanging by the door, Malika's last trace from the night before. "You didn't come upstairs," she said gently. He didn't answer. She moved past him to the kettle, boiled water, and returned with a second mug. She placed it near his elbow. No questions, no advice. Dante finally spoke. "She cracked last night." Latifa didn't react with surprise. "You needed that. I don't know what to feel." "You don't have to feel anything right now," she said. "Just don't lie to yourself." He looked at her, eyes heavy. "You ever been betrayed by someone you swore was safe?" She held his gaze. "Yes." He nodded once. "I kept accusing the wrong person," he said quietly. "I looked past what was steady. I chased noise instead." Latifa didn't flinch. "Sometimes the noise is designed to distract you from what matters." He exhaled. "You should have left a long time ago." "I thought about it," she admitted. "But Sammy, he's the reason I stayed." Dante swallowed. "And me?" She didn't blink. "You were the reason I kept my distance." A pause. "But now," she shrugged, "you're still learning how to be honest with yourself first." Dante reached for the cup she brought. It was still warm. For the first time, he realized what made her different. She never inserted herself into his chaos. She stayed just close enough to matter and far enough to be whole. She came when he asked. No questions, no excuses. She walked into the house like she still had a place in it. Dante was waiting in the same room they'd shared dinners, grief, and thinly veiled judgment. He didn't offer a seat. He didn't pour tea. "Sit," he said. Malika sat slowly, crossing her legs, coat still on. "You found something," she said. "I found everything," he replied. He placed the folder on the table. Documents, transfers, travel logs, a printed transcript of her call history. Her hand twitched, but she didn't reach for the papers. "You followed her the night she died." Malika didn't deny it. "She was going to expose you." Still no denial. "She loved the wrong man," Dante said. "And you thought that would ruin you." Malika's voice cracked for the first time. "She wasn't supposed to die." "Then what?" His tone sharpened. "What was supposed to happen?" "I wanted to scare her. Get her to stop. Just long enough for things to be cleaned up." Dante stared. "She kept records," Malika continued, "of everything. Money. People. She didn't trust anyone. So you silenced her." "She wasn't supposed to be home," Malika whispered. "It was supposed to be a warning." He stood. "You used my grief. You stood in this house. You watched my son cry for her." Tears streamed down her face now. "I tried to fix it," she said. "You destroyed it," he replied. She broke then. Full collapse. Shoulders shaking. Years of manipulation falling flat in the face of exposure. He stepped away, pulled out his phone. "This ends tonight." Detective Rowan stood across from Dante with a closed file in hand. "This is what we needed," he said, tapping the folder. Inside were time-stamped photos from a traffic camera. Malika's car parked 2 blocks from the house the night of the murder. She'd lied about being in another part of town. Then came the financial records, offshore deposits, hidden accounts opened in her late brother's name, all traced back to one firm, the same shell that handled multiple contracts under Malika's approval. But it was the voice message that sealed it. From Malika to an unknown recipient, "She won't back down. I told her she'd lose everything. She said she didn't care. I can't let her sink the deal. Handle it." The tech team had recovered it from her cloud backup. Malika never deleted it. She just hid it. The pieces were in place. Motive, control, money, fear, means, access, trust, knowledge of every blind spot in the house. Dante sat quietly as Rowan finished. "She didn't pull the trigger herself," the detective added. but she gave the instruction. She opened the door. "Is the shooter known?" Danta asked. "We're close," Rowan replied, "but Malika's part is airtight. A formal arrest warrant was issued within the hour." Rowan looked at Danta carefully. "This changes everything," he said. Danta nodded once. "It already has." As he left the station, the weight wasn't gone. But it had shifted, not from confusion to peace, from paralysis to clarity, and now he had someone he needed to face before anything else could move forward. They arrested Malika the next morning. No warning, no press. 2 unmarked cars pulled into the driveway of the townhouse she'd moved into after the funeral. She answered the door in a robe, hair undone, eyes sharp even then. "What is this?" she asked. Detective Rowan didn't raise his voice. "Malika Russo, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit homicide." Her face drained slowly. Not shock, recognition. As they cuffed her, she looked past them, searching the street like she expected Danta to be there. He wasn't. By noon, the news reached extended family. Calls poured in. Accusations followed. Some blamed Danta for pushing too hard. Others said grief had driven everyone mad. A few insisted Malika had been misunderstood. Sammy heard whispers before anyone explained anything. "Why is Aunt Malika in trouble?" he asked, sitting on the couch with his backpack still on. Danta knelt in front of him. "Because she made choices that hurt people." "Did she hurt Mummy?" Danta closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Sammy didn't cry. He looked down at his hands. "She used to read me stories," he said quietly. "I know," Danta replied. That night, the house felt split. Phones buzzed. Messages piled up. Some family members said they wouldn't visit again. Others demanded answers. Latifa moved through the tension without commentary. She cooked. She folded clothes. She sat beside Sammy until he slept. Danta watched it all. The fracture wasn't loud. It was final. Blood didn't protect anyone. Truth didn't comfort everyone. But for the first time since his wife died, the chaos had a name. And that mattered. She was in the same room where they first met. The kitchen lights were dim. Her back was to him, hands wrapped around a mug of warm tea. She didn't turn when she heard him step in. Danta stopped a few feet away. For once, he didn't have control over his voice. "I was wrong," he said. Latifa didn't move. "About what?" "About you. About everything." Now she turned. Calm. "Still, I knew what you thought of me," she said. "It wasn't hard to see. I watched you like a suspect," he admitted. "Measured your movements, your words, your silence. And still I stayed," she said. "That's what I don't understand," he replied. She set the mug down gently. "Because I wasn't staying for you. I was staying for Sammy. For the house. For what it could become again." He stepped forward, not close. "Careful. I owe you more than an apology." "No," she said. "You owe yourself the courage to treat people like they're innocent until they prove otherwise." "I don't know how to start over." "You don't," she replied. "You start from where you are." He reached out, not to touch, but to close the space between them. She didn't flinch. "I didn't trust you," he said. "But I always felt safer when you were here." "That's not the same as trust," she said. "But it's a beginning." He looked at her differently then, not as the woman who filled a role, but as someone who had stayed when every sign told her not to. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not because of Sammy, not because of duty, but because you were right when no one else was." She picked up her mug, cradled it again, and met his eyes. "I don't stay where I'm doubted," she said, "but I stay where I'm chosen." They didn't talk the next morning. Latifa prepared Sammy's breakfast like she always did. Soft eggs, fruit, the cereal he liked on the side. She placed the plate down without a word, just a nod. Danta watched from the kitchen entrance. Shirt unbuttoned at the collar, face still lined from the night before. After Sammy left for school, Latifa stayed behind. Usually she went for a walk or read in the garden. Not today. "I'll stay," she said without being asked. "But not for your peace of mind." Danta leaned against the counter. Then, for what? For mine, she replied. This house feels safer when I'm in it. That matters to me. He nodded slowly. I want to rebuild something better. Wanting is cheap, she said. Living it is where it costs you. Danta stepped closer. Tell me what that looks like. No more testing me, she said. No more watching like I'm part of an investigation. Done. No more treating Sammy's calm like it's temporary. He's healing. Let him. I will. And one more thing, she said, steady. If you want me here, speak to me like I'm standing beside you, not behind you. He didn't flinch. You are beside me. Then act like it, she said. Every day. Not just when it's convenient. He reached for the coffee pot, poured her a cup, and placed it on the table between them. Not as an offering, as a beginning. Sammy didn't ask about Malika anymore. He didn't bring up his mother either, not in the way he used to. But something had shifted. He started humming during breakfast. He drew pictures again, this time with full scenes, not just black and white stick figures. He laughed during his evening bath. Latifa noticed the change first. His drawings have color again, she told Danta. He looked at the crayon sketch left on the kitchen counter, Sammy standing between two adults, a son in the top right corner, a swing set in the back. He put you in, she added. He never used to. At bedtime, Sammy asked if he could say goodnight to Danta directly. Danta followed him up, expecting a quick hug or wave. Instead, Sammy climbed into bed, pulled the covers to his chin, and said, Will you still be here when I wake up? Yes, Danta said. Every morning. That night, Sammy didn't wake from a nightmare. The next afternoon, Latifa found him reading alone. Her book, not a picture one. You understand this? She asked. He nodded. I like how she says things without explaining everything. She smiled. You're listening differently now. Sammy looked up. I hear more when it's quiet. That line stayed with her. Later, she repeated it to Danta. He didn't speak, just stood there holding one of Sammy's socks, small, faded blue, clean. He's trusting again, she said. He's braver than me, Danta replied. No, she said. He's just quicker at forgiving. He no longer paced the hallway at night. The files stayed closed. The cameras stayed off. The house breathed differently. One evening, Danta joined Latifa and Sammy on the back patio. Sammy was trying to catch fireflies in a jar. Danta just sat. No phone. No distractions. Latifa watched him out of the corner of her eye. You look different. He gave a soft laugh. I feel less like a shadow. You're showing up. Not for show, he said, because the first want to. The next morning, he made breakfast. It wasn't perfect. The eggs were uneven, the toast too dark. But Sammy ate everything. You made this? The boy asked. I tried, Danta replied. Sammy grinned. You tried good. That line stayed with him all day. Later, he stood outside the study, watching Latifa pick up scattered crayons and puzzle pieces. Let me, he said, taking the box from her hands. She blinked, but let go. He wasn't rushing to fix things anymore. He wasn't commanding presence. He was just, here. Why now? She asked quietly. Because guilt moves fast, he said. But clarity stays. She didn't answer right away. Then, if you keep choosing this version of you, we'll be fine. He nodded. No big promises, no speeches. Just movement, quiet, real. The house was quiet. Sammy had fallen asleep early after a long day at school. Latifa stepped out onto the balcony, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. The night air was still, the sky clear. Danta joined her without speaking. He brought 2 cups, her tea, his coffee. He handed hers over, fingers brushing slightly. Thank you, she said softly. They stood side by side, neither needing to fill the space with words. You never asked what changed for me, he said after a moment. Latifa didn't look at him. You started seeing instead of judging. I started listening, he corrected, to what wasn't said. She turned slightly, watching him. Not every man knows how to hear silence, she said. I had to lose control first, he admitted. And learn peace wasn't something I could force. A pause. "Do you regret staying?" he asked. She answered without hesitation, "No. Even when I made you feel small." "You never made me feel small," she said. "You made yourself feel large. There's a difference." He smiled. "I've never met anyone like you." She didn't smile back, but her voice softened. "Then treat that difference like something worth protecting." He reached for her hand, slowly. No pressure. She let him take it. No kiss, no promises, no labels, just hands held in stillness. For them, this was louder than declarations. It was presence, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like the beginning of something whole. The house woke differently now. No alarms, no rush, just quiet footsteps and soft kitchen sounds. Sammy was always first to the table, hair messy, socks mismatched. Latifah had long stopped correcting him. He liked to match his moods, not his clothes. "Blue means I feel brave," he once said. And orange, hungry. He grinned. Mornings became their rhythm. Latifah made toast just the way he liked it, one side crisp, the other soft. Danta brewed coffee before anyone asked. Sammy had questions now, not the heavy kind, the everyday kind. "Why do eggs change when you cook them? What does your watch do besides tell time? Did Mommy like peanut butter?" Danta answered what he could. When he couldn't, Latifah filled the gap. Some mornings, Sammy packed his own lunch. Other times, he asked Latifah to do it with extra care. "I don't know what that means," she teased. "You do," he said. And she did. On Fridays, Danta drove him to school. On Mondays, Latifah walked him. They didn't plan it that way. It just happened. One morning, as Sammy ran ahead to the car, Danta looked at Latifah. "You're part of our morning," he said. She shrugged gently. "You are too." No one said the word family. They didn't have to. It was growing, one routine at a time. Danta didn't leave the house at 6 a.m. anymore. His driver waited later. His calls started later. And for the first time in years, he started declining meetings that ran past dinner. "I can take the call in the morning," he told his assistant one afternoon. "But the investor, it can wait," he said. "Everything does, if you let it." He still worked, still made decisions, still ran the company, but something shifted. He now stopped to eat with Sammy, helped with math homework, even when he got it wrong. He asked Latifah how her day was. Meant it. "At the office, people noticed. You seem lighter," his CFO said. "I'm more focused," Danta replied. In truth, he no longer saw productivity as a badge of pride. Peace was more expensive and harder earned. At home, he took over small tasks, cleaning out the mail pile, fixing a loose kitchen handle. Once, Latifah found him folding laundry badly. "You're not great at this," she said, watching him mismatch socks. "Nope," he agreed, "but I'm here." She smiled and corrected him gently. Evenings became quieter. He stopped checking his phone after 8, stopped walking around like the world would collapse if he didn't solve it. Sammy noticed. "You're not tired all the time," he said one night. Danta ruffled his hair. "That's because I stopped trying to fix everything at once. You're better when you're not rushing." So was life. It was a Wednesday evening. Sammy had fallen asleep on the couch mid-cartoon. The room was dim, the television on mute. Latifah placed a blanket over him. Danta poured tea without asking. They sat across from each other, the quiet folding in around them. "Where did you grow up?" he asked. "Maryland." "Outside Baltimore," she said. "Big family?" "2 brothers. One's gone. The other stopped calling when I stopped bailing him out." He didn't push. "My mother cleaned hotel rooms, taught me how to make a bed tight enough to bounce a coin." "And your father?" She shook her head. "He came and went, left more silence than memory." Danta stared at the mug in his hand. "My father was sharp," he said. "Everything calculated, even his affection." "What about your mother?" "She stayed out of his way. I think she thought that was survival." Latifah nodded slowly. "Pain doesn't always show up as shouting," she said. Sometimes it's structure, perfection, control. He looked at her. And sometimes it's silence dressed as discipline. She met his gaze. We both learned to function through loss. Function, he repeated. Not feel. That's changing, she said. He reached for her hand, not in longing, but in understanding. We don't owe each other everything, she said. But what we do share, he added, has to be real. She let her fingers stay in his, not for comfort, for truth. They weren't comparing scars. They were finally speaking from beneath them. It was late. The house was quiet. Dante stood outside Sammy's door, listening to his steady breathing. Latifa joined him, barefoot, arms folded loosely. He sleeps easier now, she said. Because of you, Dante replied. She tilted her head. Because of us. They moved toward the living room together, unspoken rhythm guiding their steps. Latifa sat on the edge of the couch. Dante didn't sit beside her. He sat close, but not too close. He glanced at her hand resting on her thigh, fingers still. May I? He asked. She looked down at her hand, then up at him. You don't have to ask every time, she said gently. I want to, he replied, because it means something. She offered her hand. He took it, slow, careful, honest. No tension, no hesitation. Their fingers didn't intertwine like lovers in a movie. They simply rested there, skin against skin, warmth shared in stillness. A long breath left his chest. Latifa leaned her head against the back of the couch, not on his shoulder, not yet, but she didn't pull away. You know I'm still watching you, she said softly. He smiled. I expect that, not to judge, she added. To see if the peace you're showing up with is something you'll fight to keep. He nodded. It is. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, no words filled the silence. And for once, the silence didn't feel like a gap. It felt like something they'd built, together. The rain came lightly that morning. Not heavy, just steady enough to hold the quiet. Latifa sat at the edge of the window seat, staring out over the garden. Dante joined her with 2 mugs, one in each hand. I've been thinking, he said. You've learned a lot about my history. I know almost nothing about yours. She accepted the tea but didn't answer right away. My mother worked 3 jobs, she began. We didn't have much, but we had habits. Night prayers, packed lunches, laundry folded the same day. He listened. She died of a stroke when I was 19. We didn't see it coming. Dante lowered his gaze. I moved in with my brother after that, she continued. He drank, gambled, said I reminded him of her too much. Did he hurt you? Not with fists, just with forgetfulness. Left me to carry things too heavy for my age. She sipped her tea, steady. The first family I worked for, I bonded with the daughter. She had nightmares. I'd sit beside her bed every night. What happened? Dante asked. She got better, and they let me go. Said I'd grown too close. Said it blurred lines. Dante exhaled slowly. That's not your fault. No, she said, but it's where I learned not to belong too deeply. You belong here. Latifa didn't smile, but she didn't deflect. I've lost people who were supposed to stay. That's why I protect my peace. It's what I have left when the rest disappears. He nodded. You're not disappearing here. Her voice softened. Then don't make me prove I deserve to stay. For 3 days, Dante didn't ask her anything personal. He didn't press when she came home late from errands. He didn't question when she took longer walks. He let her be. At breakfast, she poured her tea in silence. He sat beside her, reading quietly. At night, he made space on the couch, never crowding her side. She noticed, even if she didn't say so. Sammy, as always, filled the gaps, stories about classmates, drawings, new vocabulary words. But Dante was listening closer now, not just to Sammy, but to the spaces between Latifa's sentences. The pauses that used to unsettle him now made sense. He'd once tried to fill her silences with analysis. Now he respected them. One afternoon, he passed her in the hallway and said simply, "If you ever want to talk more, I'll be here. But I don't need it to know who you are." She paused. "I've never had someone wait without hovering," she said. "I've never had someone stay without being asked." A soft moment. Later, he found her in the garden trimming the dry ends from the hydrangeas. She handed him the clippers. "You're not afraid of stillness anymore," she said. "I had to stop running from what it revealed." She glanced at him. "That's growth." He smiled. "No, that's you." And she let the silence stretch, not because she was hiding, but because she finally felt seen in it. The courtroom was smaller than Dante expected. No cameras, no spectacle, just wood benches and low voices. Malika stood between two officers, hair pulled back, hands folded. She didn't look at him when he entered. The judge read the charges slowly. Conspiracy, financial fraud, access facilitation. Malika pleaded guilty. Her voice didn't shake. But it lacked the confidence she once carried like armor. When she was allowed to speak, she cleared her throat. "I made decisions out of fear," she said. "I thought I was protecting what mattered. I wasn't." Dante watched without reaction. The sentence came down firm and final. Years, no appeal. As she was led away, Malika turned once. Her eyes searched the room, landed on Dante, then dropped. No anger, no accusation, just the weight of consequence. Outside, the air felt cleaner. Dante didn't feel relief. He felt release. The story that had ruled his nights no longer demanded his attention. That evening, he returned home and found Latifa in the kitchen, preparing dinner. "It's done," he said. She nodded. "And you?" "I'm lighter," he admitted. "Not healed, but no longer trapped." She met his eyes. That's how forgiveness starts, not by forgetting, but by choosing not to live there. He didn't ask her opinion on the sentence. She didn't offer one. They moved through the evening quietly, not avoiding the past, just no longer living inside it. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Latifa stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, washing fruit for breakfast. Sammy sat at the table, legs swinging, sketching something with full focus. Dante leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching the stillness unfold. "I'm drawing us," Sammy said without looking up. Latifa glanced over her shoulder. "Let me guess. Another superhero family." "Nope," he replied. "Just us. Regular." She smiled. "I like that." A few minutes later, as she placed a plate in front of him, Sammy looked up and said, "Thanks, Mama." The word hung in the air, soft, not dramatic. Latifa froze. Her hands stayed near the plate, but her eyes searched his face. Sammy kept drawing, unfazed. Dante didn't say a word. He watched both of them carefully. Latifa cleared her throat. "You sure about that word?" Sammy shrugged. "You do what moms do, but better." She blinked fast. "I'm not trying to replace anyone." "You didn't," he said. "I just picked." Dante stepped forward then, rested a hand on his son's shoulder. "You okay with that?" he asked gently. Sammy nodded. "It feels right." Latifa didn't cry. She didn't speak. She reached for Sammy's hand and squeezed it once. He squeezed back. Later that day, as they folded laundry together, Dante leaned close and whispered, "You're part of his route now." Latifa looked up. "I didn't plan for this." "Neither did he," Dante said. "He just knew where love lived." The sun filtered through the leaves gently. Not harsh, not dull, just right. Latifa trimmed the hedges slowly, fingers steady on the shears. Sammy sat nearby on a picnic blanket, a book open in his lap, the pages turning slowly as he followed each line with his finger. Dante stood by the edge of the walkway, hands in his pockets, watching them. No words were spoken for a while. Just the occasional flutter of wind, the scrape of metal on branch, and Sammy's soft reading voice. Latifa looked up at Dante once and smiled, not wide, but full. He stepped closer, offering a small glass of water. "You're better at this than the gardener we fired," he said. "I care more," she replied. "That's the difference." She set down the clippers and took the glass, sipping slowly. Sammy walked over with a flower in hand. "For the table," he said. "The yellow ones always feel warm." Latifa tucked the stem behind his ear instead. Now you carry the warmth. They laughed softly, no louder than the breeze. Danta crouched beside them, brushing soil from the stones. This is the first time this house has felt whole, he said. Latifa didn't answer. She didn't need to. The garden didn't need more. It had breath, movement, laughter, and choice. Everything they'd lost was still part of them. But everything they'd built, this, was theirs alone. The garden was nearly quiet again. Sammy had gone inside to grab his sketchbook. Latifa remained kneeling beside the flower bed, brushing dirt from her palms. Danta stood a few feet away, silent. Then, he reached into his pocket. No box, no velvet, just a small ring wrapped in soft cloth. He walked toward her slowly, his voice calm. "I thought about waiting for the right moment," he said. "Then I realized we've already lived through every wrong one." Latifa turned, her hands stilled in her lap. "I've made mistakes," he continued. "Big ones, but none bigger than thinking trust could be controlled instead of earned." She stayed still, eyes locked on his. Danta lowered himself to one knee, not with fanfare, not with speech, just presence. He unwrapped the cloth and held the ring between his fingers. No lights, no photographers, just us. Latifa's breath hitched, but her face didn't change. "I want to build a life that matches your peace," he said. "Not because it's owed, because I choose it." She looked at the ring. Simple, real. The kind you wear daily without noticing it, until someone asks where you got it and you smile, remembering. Danta waited, not for effect, for her choice. Latifa didn't blink. She didn't glance at the ring again, or ask him to repeat himself. She met his eyes and said, without a shift in tone, "Yes, not a performance, not a question, just a decision." Danta let out the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You were sure," he said. "I've been sure for a while," she replied. She reached forward, not for the ring first, but for his hand, held it between both of hers. "You didn't come asking because you needed saving," she added. "You came ready to share peace. That's what made it right." He slid the ring onto her finger. No shaking, no show. It fit like it had always belonged there. Sammy's voice called from the doorway. "What are you guys doing?" Latifa smiled. "Planting something." Danta stood, brushing the dirt from his knee. "Something permanent." Sammy looked confused, then curious, then... He grinned. "Are you getting married?" Latifa glanced at Danta. "We are," she said. "If you're okay with it." Sammy nodded fast. "Only if I can wear a tie." Danta laughed. "Done." They didn't mark the moment with clapping or declarations. They picked up the gardening tools, finished the row of flowers, took their time. Because for them, the decision didn't need a stage. It just needed to be shared, with intention, with steadiness, and with no one else watching. The sun dropped slowly behind the trees, painting the yard in amber. Sammy had gone inside with his sketch pad, declaring he had important wedding art to design. Danta stayed behind, raking the last of the leaves. Latifa wiped her hands on her apron, then stood, stretching her arms above her head. "I forgot how quiet dusk can be," she said. He looked up. "Want to keep it that way?" She smiled. "Not this time." He stepped closer, one hand extended, not dramatic, not rehearsed. "Dance with me. There's no music. There's enough." She hesitated for only a second, then placed her hand in his. His other hand rested gently on her waist. They moved slowly, the grass soft beneath their feet, the sounds of the day giving way to stillness. Neither spoke. It wasn't about rhythm. It wasn't about steps. It was about presence, repetition, trust that no one would step away too soon. The breeze brushed past them, carrying the faint scent of lavender from the flower beds. Latifa leaned her head against his shoulder. "I never thought I'd dance in silence," she said. "You're not," he whispered. "You're dancing in peace." They stayed that way until the light faded completely. Not because they needed to prove anything, because it felt like home. And this time, neither of them flinched from the feeling. Spring arrived early. The same garden now bloomed fuller. The hydrangeas had taken. The soil was healthier. So was the house. Latifah stood by the window, sunlight on her face, tying Sammy's school lunch with practiced ease. Danta entered behind her, suit jacket in one hand, Sammy's sneakers in the other. "You think we'll make it in time?" he asked. "We've never been late," she replied. "That's because you run the clock." She smirked. "I run the house." He grinned. "Same thing." Sammy bounded down the stairs, tie crooked, hair wild, hands full of paper. "I finished the program. You and Mama are on page 2. Latifah raised an eyebrow. "Page 2? You're listed under superheroes who aren't teachers." Danta laughed, adjusting Sammy's collar. A framed photo sat by the entryway, the three of them in the garden last fall, arms linked, no forced smiles. Everything had slowed, but nothing had dulled. Danta still worked, but with boundaries. Latifah still carried quiet, but with rest. Sammy still asked big questions, but slept soundly. Outside, the car waited. The day was already moving, but inside, time made room for them. Not in grand gestures, in small consistency. This was no longer a life rebuilt. It was simply their life. The gymnasium smelled like glue sticks and hand sanitizer. Folding chairs lined up in rows. Colorful paper banners hung from the ceiling, spring showcase, families welcome. Danta held the camcorder. Latifah carried Sammy's extra sweater. They stood near the back, not looking for attention. "I remember when he wouldn't even speak in class," his teacher whispered, smiling. "Now we can't get him off stage," Latifah replied, her voice low, proud. Sammy peeked through the side curtain, spotted them, and waved with both hands. He mouthed something exaggerated. "You're here," like it was still a surprise. Danta nodded back. One slow, steady motion. The performance began. A group of third graders stood in a crooked line, singing a slightly offbeat version of This Little Light of Mine. Sammy stood center. He sang loud, off-key, unapologetic. Latifah reached for Danta's arm and held on, not for support, just to share the moment. When it ended, Sammy ran over, cheeks flushed, holding a paper medal. "I got this for courage," he said. "You earned it," Danta said. "Did I sing too loud?" "You sang brave," Latifah replied. That night, they placed the medal on the fridge beside drawings and math quizzes. Not because it was gold, because it was his. No applause could match what they already shared: a seat in the audience, a hand to hold, a reason to show up. The house settled after dinner. Sammy fell asleep on the living room rug, still in his school shirt, his medal clutched in one hand. Danta carried him gently upstairs. Latifah followed with a blanket and the book he never finished. They didn't speak until they came back down. Danta poured tea. Latifah folded the throw pillows on the couch. The kind of silence that used to press now simply filled the space between them. "You think he'll remember today?" Danta asked, handing her the cup. "He'll remember the part where we clapped too loud." She smiled. "You did clap too loud. I was proud," he chuckled, rubbing his eyes. "Funny how this house feels like something we built," he said. "Even though we never touched the walls. We rebuilt everything the walls couldn't hold," she said. They sat down side by side, not touching, not distant. "I used to think peace was something I had to earn through perfection," he said. "Turns out, I just needed to show up honest." "You're showing up softer," she replied. "That matters more than promises." He looked at her, not with need, but gratitude. "Do you miss the old life?" She shook her head. "I miss nothing that cost me my dignity." They both laughed softly then, because it was true and because it was light. Not every memory held pain. Some now held perspective. Not every day was perfect. But every night ended like this: warm tea, quiet peace, and someone to reflect with who didn't need a script. The garden was quiet again. Danta stood by the back gate, hands in his pockets, watching Sammy race paper boats across the stone-lined fountain. Latifah sat on the nearby bench, flipping through one of Sammy's forgotten school books. No grand moments, no noise, just presence. He took a slow breath, then joined her, sat beside her, rested one hand on her knee. "You ever think about how we got here?" he asked. "All the time. You regret any of it?" "Only that it took so long." They watched Sammy splash, his laughter lifting into the air. Dante looked over at her again, really looked. He thought of the man he was when she first walked through his door, cold, calculating, surviving by control. He thought of the silence that once filled this house and the way she never tried to fix it. She stayed, she moved with care, she made no promises, she just didn't leave. And over time, she didn't just teach his son how to trust, she taught him how to breathe. He reached for her hand again, without ceremony. "You were never the rescue," he said. She looked up, eyes steady. "I know." He exhaled. "She didn't save me from grief," he said quietly. "She walked beside me until love grew." And with that, they watched their future run barefoot across the yard, together. Not all love begins with fireworks. Some love begins in silence, in still glances, awkward mornings, hard conversations, and second chances that were never begged for, only earned. You see, healing isn't loud. It doesn't ask for applause. It shows up every day through choices, through presence, through the decision to stay when leaving might be easier. This story wasn't about perfection. It was about people learning how to see each other without fear, how to listen without needing to fix, how to build something sacred without rushing the foundation. So, if you're holding on to pain or waiting for peace to shout your name, don't. Choose quiet. Choose care. Choose to show up. Because real love doesn't rescue you. It walks beside you, patiently, until you're ready to grow something worth staying for. And when that day comes, you won't need to explain it. You'll simply feel it, and finally, you'll be home.